and welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Nations round number 4, driving at Interlagos in the Group 1 cars. As you can see there, that lap didn't count. I had to back out of it anyway because for some reason the timing delta was red, and I have no idea why, because if you look at lap 5, the lap was clean and was counted, and I noticed it going down this straight that it was red, so I had to back out of that lap, and I was really confused because there was no penalty. I just had a red timing delta on lap 6, so I had to back out of lap 6 and just try and preserve the tyres for this final lap in qualifying. You can see pushing really hard because I've got to get over the line. It's going to be very close getting over the line, and I needed to improve my lap because at this stage I hadn't hit a particularly great lap at 1:20.9. I knew that in the practice I did before the race, I'd only done limited practice for this. I was not expecting a great result from this because I'd only really jumped on the night before. I'd done about 5 to 10 laps in time trial. So on the morning of yesterday when the FIA race was on, I managed to get online, do some practice, did a race with TRL line, did one practice race. He used a different car, we worked out that this was a car to use. Now there was different strategies we could run. We didn't really have a clue what strategy to run when it came to the race, but in qualifying you can see there I managed to get it down with the 2 other sessions I did for qualifying practice down to about 20.4, and there was potential to go a lot faster than that. So this lap was just about keeping it clean and getting over the line. Managed a 1:20.6, so I was reasonably happy with that because it was only a couple of attempts off what I thought I would get, and considering it was right at the end and I had to just get a clean lap in without penalties, without taking any risks, it was okay. And I think I was starting from P5, so not a bad effort at all in such a high split race. It was a very high split race, a lot of fast drivers. Looking through the grid now, you can see RC Zocchi, one of the best on the game, starting from P1, TRL Org in P2, and M Thomas I think starting in P3 there. One of the best drivers in Group 1 cars. You won't find many people as fast as M Thomas when it comes to Group 1 driving. P4, Oscar Ugo, another really good driver, and myself there starting in P5, so I was reasonably happy with that considering I had to do just a last ditch attempt on quite worn tyres, and I genuinely was quite happy with that because I think if I would have had fresher tyres and been able to push a little bit more after putting a bit better a base lap in, I would have been able to push a little bit higher up the grid, maybe down to maybe P4, P3. But you can see there Favara's also in the race, so quite a high rated lobby, and there was some real big names quite far down. You see there Giorgio 57, quite surprised to see him starting in P10. I don't know if he had any issues. Also GTB Adem starting in P11, you know, some of the fastest drivers on the game, starting quite far down. So was quite happy that with the limited practice I had actually done to get this car qualified in P5. I obviously went for the Peugeot 750 because it was just so fast in a straight line. If you went another car, you just couldn't get past this car. And that's what we worked out in the practice session with myself and TR Lightning. He went a different car and I went this, and he just couldn't get past me. It was impossible for him to pass me, and we both were doing no stop strategies in that race. So we knew that this car could do it. There was no issue with fuel. However, we kind of both realised from watching the other races during the day from other nations, I think it was the Japanese races, the Asia races, etc., that it might be preferable to go in the pits and pit. So I was going to just see how this race panned out. It obviously all depends on traffic, where you are and stuff like that, whether you're going to risk a no stop or pit. The advantage of doing a pit is you get better tyres, which runs less risk in terms of picking up a penalty. However, you're going a little bit faster, so had to weigh up the options of starting the race now from P5. I'm going to jump through to the TV replay camera and leave the onboard cockpit camera in that top right hand corner just so you can see the onboard footage as well. So straight away, everyone not taking any risks into turn 1, obviously just trying to get through these corners fairly clean, being very cautious on penalties. That was the main aim again for myself at this track, very similar to the last Nations race we did when I ended up getting taken out and had that spin. Lost quite a lot of points in that round, but I tried to keep the race without getting any penalties because the track limits were strict, and they were quite strict on this track. However, again, I didn't mind them on this track because they were predictable. You could see where they were. You run more than 2 tyres outside the white lines, you get a penalty. So I actually quite liked how they had done this track with the track limits. It kept everyone on the track, and it was you could judge it really well. So that was my aim, was just to not drive too aggressively and pick up penalties. I just wanted to keep it clean and ensure that I don't get penalties towards the end as we look in front of the I'm looking back from Oscar Ugo there, looking at myself as I'm just trying to keep it clean and stay within his slipstream. You can see P6 behind me, putting myself under pressure, but not really in a position to make any sort of overtakers going into the final corner, trying to get a nice clean run up the hill. A little bit of oversteer on the exit there where I tried to get the power down early to get into the slipstream of the car in front, and just about stayed in it and just holding on in there in P5. So doing an okay job so far. Everything in this race going obviously lap 1, just it's always good just to get a solid lap 1 in, don't lose any places, and you can see not really much change in terms of positions on lap 1, and no one really making any moves. It's been fairly static. I think everyone is pretty much in the top 10 how they started the race. You see P1, 2, 3 and P4 and 5 and 6, I think maybe 7 and 8 all the way down to the top 8 is just unchanged through the first lap, so it shows you a quite hard track to overtake if the cars are fairly similar. And also I think some of the people in different cars were not able, even though they were faster through the corners, they just couldn't get past on the straight. So it really, that's one of the reasons why you find that the top 5 cars here now, I think top 6 cars are all in the Peugeot. It was the car to go. It was the best choice for this race, especially for top split races. I'm not too sure about other splits lower down. I don't know. You would have probably been able to go other cars, but for this race, this was the car that everyone in the top split who was at the front was pretty much picking, because it was the best car to race. As you can see, Thomas there in P3, just ahead of Oscar Hugo, who's just about staying in slipstream, and I'm just about staying in P4 slipstream. So P6 is managing to stay reasonably close to the rear of my car. Managed to get a better exit from that corner as I really got on the power early again. A little bit of twitching out of the rear end as I try and get the power on really early, but it was essential that I tried to do that just so that he wasn't able to get close enough at the end of the straight to make a move, as I'm also picking up that slipstream. You can see gaining about a 10th down that straight from P4 slipstream. But this corner, this is where I was taking it really early, easy compared to a lot of other drivers. I was taking a little bit of a different line to some other drivers through there, as I got a little bit too much front end through that corner, but a lot of people were being really aggressive and pushing the limits quite far. I was tending to take it really easy, widen the line up, and then get a much better exit from that corner and take more speed down the straight. As I'll show you throughout this race what the differences between lines. You're going to see how my exit speeds were just so much better than a few other drivers coming out of that corner because of the line, and because I was taking the first part of the chicane so much easier, I was able to get much better exit speeds and push a little bit more on the exit without running the risk of a penalty. As you can see, still pretty much static so far in this race. This is why I really do like top split racing though. I mean, you've got 10 or 12 cars there pretty much in a train, all from P1 down to the back end of the grid, and everyone's kept it clean. Everyone is driving really well, really close driving together. You can see Favaris there stuck in, I think P8, I think it is P8, yeah, let's have a little look. I'm in P5, 6, 7, 8. So he's stuck behind traffic. It looks like he's trying to make some progress in the race, but he's not really able to do much at that point. And the thing with this race was it was really open to so many different strategies, because most of the cars could do this race without the need for fuel. So there was the ability to pit pretty much whenever you wanted for tyres if you were going to pit or stay out. So you found some people were going to pit early, maybe lap 4, 5, 6 or something like that. Some people were going to pit like a little bit over, so then they got the fresher tyres towards the end. So it really gave a real mixture of different strategies that were going to be used. So as you can see there, if you look on the left hand side of the positions, Favaris has disappeared off the top 8. I'm not sure if he actually got overtaken for P8, but I think it was either this lap or the previous lap. Let's have a little look if we can see him on that top right corner. Yeah, I think he is still there. So he's got stuck behind some cars where obviously the straight line speed of the 750 has managed to get past him on the straights, but then through the corners he was so fast. So I think this is the lap that, lap 4, he decided to go for quite an alternative strategy. We see a car flying off there with obviously disconnected midway through the race or something. I don't know what happened there, but it looked like a connection issue. But on this lap, Favaris decided to pit. Now this was quite a brave move, and it could work out really well, because if he can get in the pits, put some fresh tyres on, he can then push really hard for 10 or so laps, like 6, 7 laps or something, and might be able to jump a lot of people when it comes through to the pit stop phase. And then his car in general was a bit better on tyres than the 750, so he might be able to then maintain a better position. That's what he's gone to do. He's gone in the pits on lap 4, I think it was, and obviously I'm going to say I'm not going to pit on this lap. The 750 is still producing reasonable grip. Lap 4 wasn't a particularly great lap at 1 minute 22. Not the best lap, had a few scruffy corners in there, but straight away going through this sector on a personal best. So still loads of grip on this on these tyres in this car, as I'm just about holding on to Oscar Hugo there, staying about 1.3 to 1.5 seconds behind him. I'm managing to get that gap up a bit to P6 now, giving myself a little bit of breathing space so he's not able to make any moves, and that then enables you to drive that little bit cleaner and just concentrate on the apexes rather than looking in the mirror all the time. You can see in the mirror that there's a gap there, and that's what you want. You don't, if someone's right on your gearbox, you're always looking in the rear view mirror rather than concentrating on the apexes, which is where you're going to get the best lap times from. So now I can concentrate, I can start trying to put some better laps in. As you can see, again, another blue sector. So this lap looks like it's going to be a bit more solid and a little bit better, although I didn't get the best exit from that final corner. So let's have a little look as we go over the line what sort of time it's going to be. As I'm keeping it now pretty steady to Oscara there in P4, so it's a 1.5 second gap, and I get a 21.3, so not an amazing lap, but my aim for this was purely just to keep the laps as consistent, as steady as possible, because obviously going through to the race, I didn't know at this stage what strategy I was going to run, whether I was going to stay out and risk a no-stop strategy. It all depended on what other drivers did and what the traffic was like and stuff like that. So I didn't want to use up too much of my grip now, just in case I did decide to stay out. So I just wanted to keep low 1 minute 21.3. You see in qualifying I had the potential to get obviously faster, but I just wanted to keep the lap times fairly steady and look after the tyres, and obviously make sure the fuel was okay as well. Obviously, if you had, I mean, the thing with this car is if you short shifted it, it didn't really lose much pace. As you can see there, P6 starting to drop back a bit now. You can see myself starting to build up that cushion, and he's now starting to come under pressure from drivers behind him. If you look in the mirror, he's got cars closer to him than he is to me. So this then enables me to just try and concentrate on pulling away as much as possible and build that gap up. But yeah, like I was saying, with regards to fuel with this car, it just really was no issue. You could short shift it and maintain good speed down the straight, so that's what I'm doing. You can see building up a little bit of a cushion. He's got the slipstream still now, P6, but you can have a little look at the difference between lines in this corner. I was really cautious getting a tight entry and then widening the line up into the final part so I could really push on the exit of the corner. You can see how it really works out at this part now, because look at the gap I build up there. Is he goes in a lot more aggressive into the first part but then doesn't get the exit speed, so I was getting a much better exit than he was, and I could see it on the Delta pretty much every lap to other drivers as well. It was because I was taking it so cautious and making sure I don't get any cuts, because the second part of that chicane where you want to jump over the curb a bit, if you cut it just a fraction too much, you've got a penalty. So I tried to widen it and make it really easy and stop any, there was just no chance of really getting any penalties from that corner, and that was the aim, and it seemed to be working out for me, as I wasn't losing too much time on the first part of the chicane, but I was gaining a bit on the second part. And you can see Oscar going in front, gained about 4 or 5 tenths in the last few laps, so he's gained a little bit, but he's also picked up a penalty. You can see M. Thomas has also got a penalty, and M. Thomas is, considering he's one of the fastest drivers in the game, he's only a few seconds ahead of me, so it shows you the progress I'm making on this game. Group 1 is probably one of my favourite classes of cars, although I've never driven this car, I've never really driven Group 1 at this track, but it was good to be driving a real track in Group 1 cars. I do enjoy driving the real tracks in the Group 1 cars over the false tracks, the fictional tracks. It's a little bit more enjoyable for me. That's how I tend to prefer racing. But you can see now, up ahead, Zocchi's starting to build up quite a big gap. He's doing really well, driving really consistent and putting some really good lap times in. You can see he obviously knows what strategy he's on. It made sense for him to push and then get in the pits, change the tyres, and he'd probably come out only a little bit behind the no stoppers anyway. So that was the best strategy for him, and I really didn't know what to do at this stage. I've got a bit of a gap to the driver behind. I'm not losing too much time to Oscar Ugo. I'm staying fairly close to him. I'm getting the gap. Whenever it goes to 2 seconds, I seem to be bringing it back down to about 1.7. So now that the tyre wear's kicking in, it's pretty much stable between myself and P4, because I think I might have looked after the tyres a little bit better during the early phase of the race. So I really had no idea of what I was going to do, even at this stage. My plan was just to see what other people do, see when they pit, and make a decision right at the pretty much the last second. I wasn't going to pit at lap 8 because I had the feeling that if I pitted lap 8, looking at the trainer cars on the map, obviously you can't see it because I've got the top right hand corner with the replay camera, but there was a long train of cars, and I thought if I pit lap 8 and come out the pits with just obviously tyre change, it's a fairly quick pit stop, and you could come out right in the middle of cars that aren't pitting, they've got worn tyres. You see it all goes for that strategy, and I felt like it was a risky strategy. It could lose you a lot of time. Also, P6 did that. The driver behind myself went for that strategy of pitting early, one lap early, so he gets the fresher tyres on. It does work in a way, but you can see my lap times have been fairly consistent. So I'm still doing 1 minute 21.7s and 6s. The consistency's been really good. If you have a little look on the right side, obviously the one lap, the 1 minute 22, every other lap has been mid 21s. I've really kept it clean and tidy, as I have a little issue on that corner where I nearly lost control of the car. Actually lost about 3 tenths there, as you saw. GTP had there gained 3 tenths just off the exit of that corner, where I've gone a little bit aggressively on the power and ran a little bit wide, but didn't lose too much time to P3 there. Oscar Hugo lost about 2 tenths, but then started to get it back through these corners now, where I think my tyres were in a bit better condition. It could also be that the little bit of understeer was helping me out a bit, because I actually had my brake balance quite far rearwards. So during the early phase, when there was a lot of grip, I was getting a little bit of oversteer on corners like this final corner. It was kicking out a bit, but now that obviously the understeer is kicking in and the car's starting to understeer, it was kind of helping me out a bit with the older tyres. And we're coming through to lap 9. This was where I had to make a decision. I seen that top 2 drivers went in the pits and decided really late and actually cut across the white line and picked up a ½ second penalty, because I just decided really late that that's when I was going to do it. You could see I wasn't sure, decided to go for it and go for an aggressive strategy of fresh tyres. This strategy, I knew that if you go on this strategy, you're going to have to do overtakes. I wasn't worried about that penalty. 6 tenths of a second wasn't really going to be an issue in terms of getting rid of. It'd only lose you out maybe not even 2-3 tenths at the finishing line by braking early. So down into P6, you can see. So have lost out on a few positions. I was in P5. There's obviously a few cars up ahead. Sorry, down into P8 at this point. So there's quite a few cars ahead of me that haven't pitted. So I'm going to have to do some overtaking. I'm 3 positions down on what I was. So it was a risk what I did. I knew it would be a risk, but I knew that now that I've got the fresh tyres on, I'm going to be able to put some really solid lap times in. And a lot of these cars are going to start dropping off their pace a bit. They're going to start losing a second to a second and a half a lap. And we've got obviously 8 laps to go. So I knew that there was going to be overtaking opportunities. I knew I needed to get past P7 as soon as possible. I couldn't hold around and sit back and wait for an easy opportunity to overtake. I needed to get him as soon as possible, so tried to get a really good exit from this corner. You can see not going in too aggressively and just concentrating on getting on the power nice and early. Did that really nicely, managed to get in the slipstream, went to go through to the left there, but I got a bit worried about taking that left hand line in case he cut it off, so decided to stay on the right hand side and just try and outbrake him into turn 1. So this is a drag race now into turn 1. I've got much fresher tyres though, so I can brake a little bit later, late on the brakes, and managed to get that done really nicely and cleanly. So that's 1 position straight away gained and didn't really lose me any time. So you can see also the driver that was behind me before the pit stop phases lost out quite a bit on in terms of time. He got stuck in a bit of traffic obviously on that, even with pitting early, and the undercut didn't work for him. And so I've now got fresher tyres than he has, and we're now moving into obviously the last 6-7 laps of this race. And I've got to start driving really aggressive. You can see Favaris there up ahead of me, where he went for that really early stop. He was about 2-3 seconds behind me when he pitted, and he's obviously now a little bit ahead because he's been able to put in some, really tidy laps with no traffic, and that's got him up into P7 just ahead of myself. And he's obviously going to be pushing. He's going to have slightly better tyres than the cars ahead of him also, so he's going to be able to gain on them while I'm gaining on him. And this is just going to really come together now for a quite amazing ending to this race. It's so many different strategies playing out. You've got people on the one stop, people just changing tyres like myself. Some people I think even put some fuel in at the stop because they burnt it up in the first phase. You've got other people not pitting at all. You've got Favaris here that pitted early and doing the longest stint on his second stint. So this is all about now trying to push and close in on Favaris as we're going to ride on board now for the best lap I did I think this was one of my best laps in the race. It wasn't an amazing lap, I just tried to keep it nice and tidy. You can see keeping it smooth through the corners, on the power nice and early from going into this corner, and just trying to concentrate on making that gap to Favaris as small as possible. You can see I'm definitely gaining, his car's getting bigger and bigger every corner we go through, and every power zone mainly. On the initial acceleration, like this part of the track, you could see the delta just shrinking down as the power of this car really does help it in acceleration. Such a quick accelerating car through the 3rd, 4th, 5th gears. Through 6th, I think the final gears, it wasn't a massive difference between the car that Favaris in compared to mine, but it was mainly on the early acceleration, so that's where I could see those gaining. Obviously on the final corner, on the going uphill, that's where you could really see the delta getting closer to Favaris, and you can see him slowly getting him closer. He's also getting closer to the car in front of him, so this is getting really close and really intense, you know, going through to the last few laps of the race, trying to get the best result I can from this race. I know I'm going to have to do some overtakes, and I know that they're going to start really dropping off in their performance on their tyres. I did do a practice run where I didn't pit, so I knew the type of drop off they were going to get. As you can see there, getting over the line with a 1 minute 20.7, so not an amazing lap, but it was a nice clean lap. It's tidy, and that's what I wanted to do, just keep the laps clean and tidy and not have any issues pretty much to the end with picking up any more penalties. Obviously I haven't actually ran wide or cut a corner yet. The only penalty I've got is where I just went for that late pit entry and picked up that penalty, which was my fault, but I kind of knew it would happen, and just took it for the sake of getting in the pits and going for that strategy. It's looking like it's going to be, whether it's going to be a good decision or not, who knows. You can see P5 is a little bit further up from Favaris, but I'm gaining on him and we're all closing up. You can see Oscar, I think it's in P5, it's actually TRL Org at this stage, and he's obviously pushing to try and get past Oscar Ugo, as well as he pitted I think a lap earlier than I did, and actually lost out a bit of time in the pits, so he obviously probably lost maybe a second or so on his strategy as well, but he's now got past I think it's GTB Adern, sorry, that he's got past, so we've got to get past GTB Adern to get myself pretty much where I started the race on the back before the pit stop phase, where I was in the race at that time. You can see coming through to the end of lap 13, so just 3 or 4 laps to go, and closing ever so slightly every lap on Favaris, now down to 1.4 seconds, and just another lap in the 1 minute 20s, so just trying to keep it consistent and just trying my hardest to get into that slipstream, so then I can really start thinking about, you know, an overtake. I felt like it was going to be harder to overtake Favaris and possibly the no stoppers, because he has got fresher tyres on, but they're quite old. You know, he pitted on the end of lap 4, so they've still done a fair amount of laps, and the only thing was his car was probably a better handling car, but my car had the speed, so if I could get close enough, there was going to be a chance to make an overtake. As it's now down to 1.2 seconds as I'm just slowly reeling him in, and GTB Adern looks like he's really struggling up there in P5, really struggling with the tyre wear that's kicking in, the used tyres with this car. It just started understeering massively, and that's one of the reasons I didn't want to go on that strategy, and I changed my mind last minute, because there's just more chance of picking up any sort of penalty, you know, running wide out of a corner, or running wide then having to cut another corner and stuff like that you just don't want to do. And you can see so many drivers have penalties in this race. I obviously have the penalty from the pit entry, but you know, I don't know what other penalties other people have got in terms of time. I know mine's really small. Other people don't know that in the race. Obviously you can't see the amount of penalty that other drivers have got. So now just 3 laps to go to try and get myself back to at least the position that I started this race on. This is why it was such a hard decision, because I just, you know, I knew the one-stop strategy could work, and that you'd have track position, but looking at this I would have just been a little bit ahead of P5. So at this rate, if I keep going the way I am, it's looking like a good strategy to change the tyres and then just try and do it on the track and get your positions back with overtakes. It's now getting really close to Favaris and just about picking up his slipstream now off obviously that acceleration that the 750 has, and now we're going to look back from Favaris and myself, as I've got a bit better tyres than he has, and obviously, well, quite a bit better tyres, but his car's a little bit better on handling. But then it's going to be the power zones where I can really home in and try and make a move on him. As you can see, just being patient on the throttle, trying to keep it smooth and tidy, not trying to make any errors. I just want to keep it tidy all the way to you know, getting past him, because if I make one error, it could cost me quite a lot in this race. You know, one error and it could stop you having that one opportunity to make an overtake. As we're now coming up to the final corner, trying to get a nice clean exit from that corner, hook that up nicely, just clip the apex on the panel nice and early, and look at the difference in power. Look at that initial acceleration there, and now we're going side by side with Favaris going into turn 1. We're going to drag race all the way down to turn 1. Is he going to be able to defend that? He's staying on the inside. He's going to have to brake really late. I'm a little bit ahead going into the braking zone, but he's braked really late and just squeezed his car into that gap. Brilliant driving by Favaris there. Great defensive driving, and I had to just back out of that one. But now getting on the power, he has a massive moment, and I give him a little nudge there because I didn't want to get off the power, so I give him a little nudge, and that would have been an overtaking move if I would have been able to get on the left hand side of him, but couldn't turn it into an overtake, and just had to sit back and stay in P7. But I felt like there was going to be opportunities. 2 laps to go, and look how many cars, we've got 3 cars up ahead of us. I'm going to have a little look on the inside, but again, I cannot throw it up the inside there. I'm going to have to back off and just let Favaris keep that P6 for now. I don't want to make any rash decisions that is going to obviously ruin any chance of an overtake. I've still got 2 laps to do it, so I need to just take my time. Obviously a lap and a half, sorry, to do this. There is going to obviously be opportunities, but Favaris has managed to get past P6, which is massive for him, and now I need to get past GTP Ardern as fast as possible. I can't afford to sit back behind him and lose any more time. I need to make this move as soon as possible. So going through the final corner, I'm going to try my hardest to get a really good exit from this corner on the power nice and early, and look at the difference in traction. The fresher tyres giving me the ability to run up the inside and then just get back into Favaris' slipstream. So cut across his line, making sure that I can then pick up the slipstream from Favaris. He's obviously going to get the slipstream from me, but he's not going to be able to brake anywhere near as late as I am. So I'm on the brakes nice and late. He tries to brake late, but he just can't outbrake myself into turn 1. And now I'm going to have a little look to see if I can make some moves on Favaris going into through this corner. He is a little bit too far ahead there, and going down the straight here now. This was real strange. Going into the braking zone, I actually braked a little bit early, just before the 100, but he braked massively early and had to just turn an avoiding move into an overtake, and actually pulled off a really nice overtake. There was a little bit of contact, but I didn't push him out wide off the track. I kind of turned it into a Daniel Ricciardo type overtake, and it worked out for me. So now I can concentrate on trying to get past Oscar Hugo. We've got a few corners to do this. Am I going to be able to get him before the finishing line? It's going to be tricky. He's really struggling with them tyres. Look at the lack of grip he's got. I'm able to get on the power earlier. I'm having a little look, seeing where I can make a move. And Org also has made an error. Looks like he's either made an error or had to get rid of a penalty. I don't know which one it was. And we're going into this final corner, so close to people, and just got to try and make a move on Oscar Hugo somewhere. So going looking to brake nice and early. He runs a little bit wide there, opens the door up. He's struggling with them tyres, and that's myself up into P4. So this strategy has actually worked out now. On the final lap, it's paid off, and I'm now up to P4, and I've got to try and get myself over this line, get rid of the penalty, and see if I can get any positions. As Org has a massive amount of penalties to get rid of, and I take P3 in this race, so really enjoyed that. I lost out quite a few seconds on that final lap. I think it was like 2 or 3 seconds on the last 2 laps, so would have only been about 6-7 seconds behind Zocchi, but what a great race he did there. Faultless driving from Zocchi, and also M. Thomas, great drive by him in P2, one of the best drivers in Group 1 cars. So really happy to be that close to them and come home in P3, and some really big points for this FIA Nations round number 4. Picking up 2,600 points, 621 points. That's my best points in the Nations Cup so far, so really happy with that. And that boosts me up in the table a little bit, puts me a little bit better position. You can see there now in P5 in the domestic and P12 in Europe, so not doing bad. It shows you how competitive the UK is. That's my I'm in P5 but P12 in the EU, but we've got some bad rounds to get rid of, so hopefully I can keep myself within the top 5. You never know, might be able to get a top 3 or 2 position, but I think the top 2, it looks like it's a battle between Tijni, Zocchi and Ardern. I don't know, I'm going to need a bit of luck and maybe a couple of big results, but the results are possible now. I can see the pace increasing. I can see that, I only need a bit of luck to pick up a really big scoring round, and I could be back in this, so it's looking interesting. I'll do my best all the way to the end, and I hope you thoroughly enjoyed that video. That was a great race. I really enjoyed driving these Group 1 cars at Interlagos. It was great fun, and I did like the stricter track limits. It kind of worked out for myself, keeping it clean. Obviously, Org had a lot of penalties to get rid of. That gave me P3, so first podium in the nation so far, so happy with that. Actually, I've got a win in the nation, in the go-kart, but obviously that was a little bit easier race. This was my first race with obviously good competition, I'd say, all the way through the field where I've picked up a podium. So happy with that, and I'll be back with the FIA Manufacturers race tomorrow. That's another great race. Hope you check that one out tomorrow, and I'm really happy with how that one went as well. So I'll be back tomorrow with more videos. Thanks again for watching, and make sure you sub the channel, and don't forget to click that notification button. Thanks again for watching, everyone.